That's great. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to our beloved sanctuary, as well as our digital sanctuary on Zoom. My name is James Cross, and I'm delighted to be with you this morning. Many thanks to Deanna Wong, who is our camera operator today, and to Jennifer Bottomley, who is our Zoom usher. To those who are here in person, if you're not seated along the Corey Street pews, please keep your mask on while indoors. Worship leaders may take off their masks at the mic when distanced from others. People of all ages are welcome to move about in the sanctuary as needed, or to make themselves comfortable in the cozy zone in front of the front pew. Children's programming for elementary school-age kids will begin today after our time for all ages. Our child care provider, Shannon, is available to be with nursery-age children in the narthex at the back, or to accompany them to our nursery in the parish hall. As we begin our service today, we acknowledge that our church was built on the ancestral, unceded land of the Massachusetts people. We acknowledge the devastating legacy of settler colonialism and the continuing harm done to indigenous groups in our community and beyond. May our commitment to justice, equity, and compassion call us to take action to honor and protect the land and all her people. Our service today will be led by our very own David Forsyth, who is a longtime member of Theodore Parker Church, a scientist by training and profession, and a wildlife photographer in retirement. David, thank you for sharing your reflections with us today. We invite all of you to bring your perspectives, your beliefs, and doubts, and all that is unique and wondrous about you to our service. In the spirit of love, all are welcome here. If you're new to Theodore Parker or visiting today, we'd love to get to know you. Please fill out a connection card in the bright yellow pamphlet in the pews or via the link that will be posted in the online chat. This will help us welcome you. We'd like to offer a moment for everyone to greet one another. So Deanna, could you please put our sanctuary screen in gallery view as we do? Let's give each other an inspired wave and say hello to one another. Terrific, thank you. We hope that each of you will find some comfort to carry with you over the week and some challenge for your thoughts. As always, we wish each of you health, well-being, and a sense of peace. As our pianist, Yukiko Tagagi, brings us into worship with B minor waltz by Bill Evans, we bid you welcome.
As we begin today, I'd like to note that we have a new piece of art hanging in the chancel. This is a quilt owned by Mary Beth Noonan and made by Mary Harmon. It says, "I am the bee." The intended message is that each of us can pollinate change, especially as it relates to the health of our planet. The opening words today are a poem by Langston Hughes, a Black American poet, writer, and activist. "In time of silver rain, the earth puts forth new life again. Green grasses grow and flowers lift their heads, and over all the plain, the wonder spreads of life, of life, of life. In time of silver rain, the butterflies lift silken wings to catch a rainbow cry. And trees put forth new leaves to sing in joy beneath the sky, when spring and life are new." Our opening hymn today is For the Beauty of the Earth, which is number 21 in your gray hymnal. Folliot S. Pierpoint wrote its lyrics in 1864. One of many 19th century British people who are going to appear in this service today. He wrote it when he was just 29. He was captivated by the beauty of the countryside that surrounded him and was eager to express gratitude for every aspect of creation. Of course, the original lyrics said, "Lord of all," and as you use, we have changed that to "Source of all." This is actually my favorite hymn from when I grew up in a congregational church. It was not sung often enough for my taste, but it was actually something that I really look forward to when it did appear. So let's rise in body or rise in spirit and raise your voices as we join in singing For the Beauty of the Earth.
Each week, we light our flaming chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, with words of shared covenant. I'm going to invite up James to read them in English, and Miriam Hernandez will be reading them in Spanish, which we do each week in honor of our sister community in Plazuelos, El Salvador.
Please join me. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
El amor es el espíritu de esta iglesia y el servicio es nuestra oración. Esta es nuestra gran promesa, vivir juntos en paz, buscar la verdad con amor y ayudarnos los unos a los otros.
Thank you both. Good morning. Great to be with you all this morning. My name is Rose. I have the honor of serving as this congregation's religious educator. And I'm glad to be with you all this morning, but I'm actually only going to be here for a little bit longer. We have a very special day in RE today. Instead of usually after I come up here and tell a story, we head over to the Parish Hall for Children's Chapel. But today, we're going to be going to the Boston Nature Center for a field trip to see the beehives. This quilt was incredibly appropriate for today. I don't know if we planned it or not, but our field trip has been facilitated by longtime TPC member and beekeeper, experienced beekeeper, Mary Beth Noonan, who will be a guide along with her friend. And the fact that this service is all about the spiritual lessons of beauty and nature, which David will be leading you through, is actually an unplanned but beautiful coincidence with this field trip. And even as someone myself who admires bees and beekeeping from afar, but haven't actually done it myself, I feel like the connections there, that spiritual beauty of nature and bees, those connections are endless. So I wasn't sure what would be best to talk about for my short time here this morning. So I asked Mary Beth, as an experienced beekeeper, what she finds most beautiful about bees. She said, without hesitation, the role that they play in ecosystems. That's what she finds most beautiful. Bees, as pollinators, are one of our world's great connectors. By collecting nectar from flowers and spreading pollen in the process, they complete a vital part of the cycle of reproduction that allows plants of all sorts to grow and multiply, which in turn sustains all forms of other life, including each one of us. They are one of the great weavers in the giant, infinitely complex, interdependent web of all existence, of which each of us are deeply and inextricably a part. No matter what articulation of Unitarian Universalist values and principles you're looking at these days, respect and honoring of interdependence of this giant web that we are all woven into is so central to our faith. I feel such gratitude for all these little beings whose lives and work make these huge cycles possible. And I'm grateful for the chance to take this field trip and weave some of those spiritual lessons and Unitarian Universalist values throughout our time at the beehives. We're meeting a bunch of our families over there at the Boston Nature Center, but those who have joined us here today, just meet me over there by the door and we'll drive over. Thank you all. Michael, can you lead us in our children's benediction?
For you shall go out in joy, for you shall go out in joy, and come back in peace, and come back in peace. Blessed be. Let's take a moment to center ourselves with the meditative hymn, Winds Be Still, which is number 83 in the Gray Hymnal. Its music was written by 19th century English composer Samuel Wesley, with lyrics by UU religious educator Richard S. Kimball. Please rise in body or in spirit, or raise your voices as we sing Winds Be Still. Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm let all find tranquility. Bird, fly high, lift our gaze toward distant view. Peace grant the dense life's mystery. Fly high and far, and lead us each to see how we move through the winds of eternity. Light shining, illuminate our inward view. Help us to see with clarity. Shine bright and true, so we may join our songs in new sounds that become full symphony. You may be seated.
Please join me in a time of meditation. Begin by imagining yourself in the beauty of nature in the woods. You're invited to rest your eyes on the image that we will share of the trees, or to entice your own imagination into your own words, to close your eyes. It's a lovely spring day. The dappled sunlight is warming your skin. Soft breezes gently stir up the fragrance of the leaves. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to be doing, just soaking in the day and the woods. Letting your breath be easy, enjoy some quiet moments of the beauty of the woods and birdsong. We will come back together at the sound of a chime. And the birds will be out later.
That was a distant echo. Generosity is a spiritual practice in our Unitarian Universalist congregations. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are a part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with gratitude for all that we have been given and with the faith that together we have more than enough. Links to donate will be in the chat, or you can take a meditative moment writing out a check and sending it to the church after the service. Ushers will be coming around the sanctuary to collect an offering from those in the pews who wish to donate something more tangible. As Yukiko shares, "We Will Meet Again" by Bill Evans, an offering to sustain this congregation will be gratefully received. Thank you. Our reading this morning is a poem from Mary Oliver entitled Mindful. Every day, I see or hear something that more or less kills me with delight, that leaves me like a needle in the haystack of light. It was what I was born for, to look, to listen, to lose myself inside this soft world, to instruct myself over and over in joy and acclamation. Nor am I talking about the exceptional, the fearful, the dreadful, the very extravagant, but of the ordinary, the common, the very drab, the daily presentations. Oh, good scholar, I say to myself, how can you help but grow wise with such teachings as these? The untrimmable light of the world, the ocean's shine, the prayers that are made out of grass.
Good morning, friends. I see a lot of friendly faces. The service today is about seeking beauty, especially in nature, to seek that which lifts the spirit. I'm dedicating this sermon to the memory of Diana Diggs, who was a lover of beauty in nature. The Mary Oliver poem that was read earlier just now is a reading from her memorial service. I was also inspired to speak in church by Robin Colgrove's nearly annual reflections on science and spirituality. Can we be both people of science and people of spirit? Here is something our new minister, Heather Concannon, said on her website that resonated with me. Quote, "Another way that I might describe my theology would be through the lens of religious humanism. What that means to me is that I believe that we are part of something greater than ourselves and greater than the sum of its parts. I sometimes use the word God to describe that spirit, and I lean into the experience of awe, wonder, and mystery, while also being solidly grounded in reason and science. And the more I learn about the universe, and the more I learn about questions that science has not yet answered, the more awe and wonder I experience." End quote. I personally do not use the word God, just the word nature. The spark that first focused my interest in speaking about the meaning of beauty, and in particular beauty in nature, was an article in the New York Times Magazine just a few years ago. It's called, "What is Beauty For?" It explored scientific and philosophical views on how beauty and perceptions of beauty evolved. It focused mainly on visual beauty, with primarily birds, but also fish and flowers as examples. The article discussed trains of thought deriving from the ideas of 19th century English naturalists Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace. Darwin thought that beauty in animals could evolve separately from general fitness for survival through evolution driven by sexual selection, even to the actual detriment of survival of an individual animal. That is, a continuous cycle of developing an attractive feature and having that feature lead to reproductive success could lead to further enhancement of that feature, even if the result endangered the individual. In other words, beauty could develop for beauty's sake. Wallace had a more utilitarian view that beauty was an indicator of general fitness, health, and vigor. Many of you know that my wife Ann and I are avid birders, so surprise, surprise, I'm going to use birds to start this discussion of beauty. I'm afraid some of our friends don't fully appreciate Ann's and my love for birds, thinking instead it is some kind of strange obsession, which is true. But, I have imposed a fair number of bird photos on you as the lead banner photos in the church e-news over the last few years, including this week. And it helps to be friends with Steve Green or Gretchen to get those pictures in. But, then when I saw the bare walls of the new restroom in the parish hall, I thought, aha. And of course, now if you use the restroom, you have to see more bird photos. I thought of putting up all owl photos in that bathroom. If you can see these photos over here, you might think that perhaps that a wall full of staring owl eyes would not be appreciated in that location. This service will be a little different than most because I am going to use some slides of birds, a few slides, as examples of beauty, along with some other non-bird slides. I only have 499 different species of birds that I've photographed, so this won't take too long. Beauty does clearly play a role in mate selection. This is particularly obvious in birds because their feathers can contain the colors of the rainbow. This is a slide of a male painted bunting. It's probably the most colorful songbird in North America. The female is uniform green and kind of looks like a leaf. It's obvious that the colors and patterns are important in some way in mate selection among birds because the colors as well as the bird songs are at their peak during the mating season in the spring. Wallace suggested that the evolution and recognition of beauty within a species may indicate reproductive value in the sense of representing health or fitness of the potential mate. Darwin's view was more that beauty evolved simply to attract the attention of a mate. In either case, a highly colored bird, such as the painted bunting, is also a more visible bird and therefore is more subject to predation. So it's a balance between being attractive to a mate and self-preservation, at least long enough to mate, living long enough to mate. Males are typically the more brilliantly colored, not exclusively, but that's typical, perhaps because they are more expendable. However, even males turn to self-preservation after breeding season, when often those bright colors and contrasting patterns fade away and are replaced in many birds by feathers of a more subdued hue in the winter. One familiar example of that is the male American goldfinch. You have that slide, which is bright yellow now, but if you watch the bird through the seasons, in winter, it turns a dull olive brown color. This is the winter bird. Another example is the chestnut-sided warbler. It's a little more subtle change, but the male in the spring colors, high contrast, very obvious chestnut side, whereas the pattern reverts to a less visible appearance in the fall. We have the next slide, or maybe that is the next one. That pattern of the chestnut side fades away and the yellow on the head becomes less bright as well, and the black contrast goes away. Female birds are often much more muted in color and therefore much better disguised. In many bird species, the females do most of the incubating of eggs, sitting still in a nest for hours. They are less likely to be attacked by a hawk or other predator if they're camouflaged. For example, look at the indigo bunting. This is the male, where we have a deep blue color in the breeding season. Starting right now, we just saw some this past week that were really a very bright blue. And the female, next, is brown. I'm sure we can all think of other obvious examples. For instance, in the very gaudy appearance of a ring-necked pheasant, this was showing off not only its colors, but the garden colors surrounding it. If we look at the female, it is a very camouflaged brown. You can see it in the field here, clearly not as obvious. And when it sits on a nest and among the vegetation, it really disappears. Or take the wild turkey, where the male is well known for spreading its colorful tail. You have that slide? In front of the females, and actually some of these may be juveniles as well, but it parades around, and the females are more subdued, more subtle in coloration. Many ducks also differ markedly between male and female, such as the wood duck. Here we see a pair. The female is not too bad looking, but the male is really flashy and has a crest as well. The classical example is the flashy tail of the peacock. This was the often quoted example in favor of Darwin's view that beauty evolves independently of individual fitness, as the male's tail is quite a cumbersome attachment. It sticks out for 3-4 feet away from the body and doesn't create an agile situation for that bird. Not all birds have evolved to follow the strategy of being visually beautiful in order to attract a mate. There are many birds that do not have strong coloration, or in fact, the two sexes may be almost indistinguishable visually, such as the tufted titmouse among the songbirds, or many of the birds associated with the ocean, such as gulls and terns. You think of them as indistinguishable and kind of dull, actually. But there may be plumage differences that you can see between breeding and non-breeding birds. There could be changes in beak, leg, or eye color in the breeding season. And there are other ways of being beautiful, such as dance or display rituals, or through birdsong. For example, look at these redhead ducks at Jamaica Pond. If you look closely, you see in the first slide that the female is rolling her eyes skyward. And it's thinking, she is thinking, males, do I have to decide? In the next slide, she thinks, oh, you can dance, all right. And in the third slide, those two are happily paired, and the other male is thinking, oh, I wasn't really that into it, but this other male looks pretty handsome. As far as singing is concerned, the month of May is a great time to hear courting birds. Just step outside or open a window. Can I have the next slide? The flowers of plants can also be beautiful. Why are flowers beautiful? Again, science can provide an answer in that many flowers have co-evolved with insects. The flowers evolved to visually attract insects to enhance pollination, thereby helping to perpetuate the species. Of course, many flowers also have odors or nectar, which similarly attract insects. And why are some insects beautiful, such as the butterflies? Darwin said that beauty and the ability to detect beauty co-evolves, so that again, it is sexual selection that created the great variety of amazing butterflies. But the important question is, why do we see beauty in the birds? We're not seeking birds as mates. Why do we see beauty in the flowers? Again, we are not the natural pollinators. We do, nowadays at least, do a lot of artificial pollination of flowers, and to develop further beauty. But we're not the natural pollinators. Why do we see beauty in many things? Let's look at a series of slides here. This is one that we certainly all recognize as being beautiful, a sunset. This is in Franklin Park. And next, we have rainbows. And we have landscapes such as the fall colors in the mountains of New Hampshire. And then we could look at, from a mountain, we can look at the beautiful clouds. All of our senses, and we also have some night beauty that we could look at the moon with storm clouds around. We can look at stars and comets in the night sky. This is comet Neowise from a few years ago. You need a dark sky, but go look for it. All of our senses can lead to recognition of beauty. We listen to beautiful music in addition to birdsong. We can smell the roses or smell coffee in the morning. We can savor the taste of chocolate. We can appreciate a beautiful mathematical equation or the structure of DNA. We can feel and see the wonderful symmetry and smoothness of a quartz crystal. So, is there an inherent need for beauty in our lives? What is that experience of recognizing beauty, and what is its purpose? We can have the definition, yes. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines beauty as the quality or aggregate of qualities in a person or thing that gives pleasure to the senses or pleasurably exalts the mind or spirit. That's actually a very clever wording. They must have spent a lot of time on that. It combines the objective and subjective aspects. The objective side is that something beautiful has certain characteristics that make it beautiful, while the subjective side is that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Pleasurably exalts the mind or spirit. That raises a few questions. Not least is, what do you mean by spirit? When I think of spirituality, my own spirituality, I think of the beauty I see in nature. Beauty may be difficult to define, but it is clearly linked to feelings of awe and wonder. When I come into the sanctuary, I look at the triptych to your left, mountains and lakes and flowers. I looked at that because it reminds me of the spiritual feelings that I have when I'm on top of a mountain. I used to regularly climb to the top of the 4,000 footers in the Northeast. I always felt the strongest of connections to nature and the strongest stirrings of spirituality when viewing the grandeur of the scenery from the top of those mountains. Of course, the endorphins from the exertion of the climb and the feeling of accomplishment of conquering another peak probably contributed to my elevated spirit. Go ahead, the next slide. Here I am on top of a mountain in the Adirondacks. Don't I look elevated in spirit? And next slide. This was taken by Steve Green. And here I am elevating my spirit on top of a mountain in Maine. Note carefully, with an equal exchange chocolate bar in hand to further elevate my spirit. We struggle to understand what beauty is and what spirit is. I think that is because beauty and spirit are reminders of what is bigger than ourselves, greater than ourselves, and therefore perhaps beyond explanation. Beauty does exist, and it is clearly related to spiritual feelings. As beauty is experienced, it raises the spirit. It makes us feel better and more appreciative of the wonder of being alive. That may have an evolutionary function, but in a pretty indirect way. It's not just some direct mechanical function like being able to run fast after prey, or having opposing thumbs, or having all our organs properly working, or physical health that can lead us to longer lives. Beauty can help us to live better, though, if we seek it out. We should seek for our own sake and the sake of our spiritual lives to sense the beauty. We should seek to touch, feel, taste, listen, smell, and I would say above all, see the beauty in the world around us. Be open to beauty. Create beauty for ourselves and others. I know in a stressful time in our family, I went outside, dug up more garden space, and planted some flowers. I was determined to be an optimistic person. Look on the bright side and look for beauty. It works. Let me close by quoting another 19th century British naturalist, Richard Jefferies, who wrote The Life of the Fields. He wrote, "The exceeding beauty of the earth, in her splendor of life, yields a new thought with every petal. The only hours when the mind is absorbed by beauty are the only hours when we really live, so that the longer we can stay among these things, so much the more is snatched from inevitable time. These are the only hours that are not wasted, these hours that absorb the soul and fill it with beauty." Again, the hours when the mind is absorbed by beauty are the only hours when we really live. That may be a little extreme, but my hope is that seeking beauty will work for all of us. May it be so.
Our closing hymn is All Creatures of the Earth and Sky, which those of you who grew up in Christian traditions may know as All Creatures of Our God and King. Its text is adapted from St. Francis of Assisi, which he wrote in 1225 near the end of his life. The tune comes from a German Easter hymn which dates back to at least the 17th century. Let's sing now in celebration of the sacredness of all life. We'll sing verses 1, 2, and 3. Please rise in body or spirit. All creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia, bright burning sun with golden beam, soft shining moon with silver gleam. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Swift rushing winds so wild and strong, white clouds that sail in heaven along. Alleluia, alleluia, fair rising morn in praise rejoice. High stars of evening find a voice. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. Cool flowing water, pure and clear, make music for all life to hear. Alleluia, alleluia, dance flame of fire so strong and bright, and bless us with your warmth and light. Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
Okay, some announcements. The first won't be on the slide. It's a comment that Nancy Wilbur made to me a few minutes ago. Interesting fact. In the centering hymn, the credit was to Richard Kimball. Does anybody recognize that name? I see some hands. A minister at Theodore Parker, historically. I don't know if anybody knows the years. 80s, okay. All right. First announcement. After coffee hour today from 12 to 1 in the parlor, an informal listening session and conversation between the Ministerial Search Committee and the congregation for sharing thoughts and questions about the search process and what we have all learned. We'll share insights and observations about the process over the past year. It's a time for the congregation to reflect and also offer our perspectives to one another as we look ahead to a new shared ministry at TPC. So if you're available and interested, noon to 1. The second of 2 TPC info sessions on Love at the Center, reflecting on Article 2 changes with Reverend Joe and Rose. Session 2 is a week from today, Sunday, May 28th, 12 to 1:30 in the parlor. No prior study required. Next, save the date. Saturday, June 3, 1:30 to 4, celebration and gratitude gathering in TPC's backyard to thank Reverend Joe for her great interim service at TPC. Last call on RSVPs so we can get enough cake. Contact Carol Andritis and Karen Kirchhoff. Contact details and sign-up link to help are in the latest TPC e-news and on TPC Talk. Okay. Another item not on the announcements, I'd like to invite up Jen Buchwald. As all of you know, the plant sale was yesterday, so she's going to give a quick report out on that.
First, I want to thank David. That was like fantastic. And I'm going to steal his word, beauty, because yesterday was a beautiful thing. The plant sale was fantastic, having it indoors, and then having like Jennifer, who's the sign extraordinaire. I'll say, I need this sign. Boom, it's done. You know, and then Carol with the books, and then Brian. I mean, incredible with the music, and his friend Karen, and then also all the compost. I mean, the back-breaking movement of that alone, I heard all the time. Oh, you know, each time he had to move it. And everybody else who did anything with this plant sale. We made almost $2,500 again. So everyone, you know, I mean, just everyone who even spent a minute, you know, on it made it a better thing. So I want to thank everyone and Mary Robson, raise your hand. There we go. She's going to be a future member of TPC. And she's a master gardener. And when I found that out, she and I became best friends immediately. So she's been my right-hand woman for the last week. With all the annuals and cleaning them all up and everything. You know, I went to Home Depot one morning, and there happened to be all these plants in the trash. And those were all the annuals, so that was an extra $200 we made. You know, I mean, you just got to keep thinking of things. And so thank you, everybody. And we've decided we're going to have it indoors from now on because it's so easy. You know, rather than waking up early in the morning and setting it up, we do it the night before and it's all in there. So it's just the whole thing has been fantastic. And Gretchen with all the PR. So and whoever I forgot. Thank you. It takes a village.
Terrific. All right, lastly, I'd like to invite up Carrie Turan, the chair of our standing committee, for one last special announcement.
Thank you, James. It's my pleasure today to celebrate our wonderful search committee. We have some small gifts from Joyful Table Pottery bowls that we purchased for each of the search committee members to thank them for such a fabulous year and successful year. And their search for our settled minister, Reverend Heather Concannon, they couldn't have done a better job. So if you could come up Kathy Ware. Kathy, as you know, helped out. She helped make sure that we got input from our parents. All those emails that you got saying sign up to come to our listening circles, sign up to meet Reverend Heather. We couldn't have done it without you. The search committee met weekly starting last summer. Yeah, I mean, thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer. Jennifer was our treasurer. And I know you saw Jennifer along with everybody else taking notes during the listening sessions. You know, the search committee put together a 90-page congregational record. I think it was the longest one that in history. Exactly. You know, but this is why we got such fabulous candidates, too. So, Jennifer, thank you. James. Yes, James, well, you saw James get up on several occasions giving fabulous updates, you know, communicating. Also, what you didn't see is that he's a project manager and he kept people on track. I saw this personally as we were rounding up, figuring out how to do these Zoom secret ballots. And he had, you know, step by step by step, how to do this. So thank you, James, for everything. Dave. You know, we were really lucky to have Dave's skills in analysis for our survey. I don't know that, you know, when we were selecting our search committee, I don't know that we had put it together, how fortunate we were going to be in having these skills. And I personally was delighted to work with Dave on the negotiating team along with Carol Thomas. That was really my pleasure, our pleasure, when we were working on Reverend Heather's contract. Thank you so much, Dave. Allison. Allison. Allison held the team together. Thank you for the whole team. And please join us after the service is over. We have cake to celebrate. Jennifer would like a picture, I think.
Of the fabulous five.
Yes.
Okay, get where you belong now. Yeah, mask down, no mask. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile! Thank you.
Yay!
I forgot to announce that we still have a few plants to sell. They're in the breezeway, and we have birdhouses, and we have pots, and then in the back are books, garden books, and recipe books. So please buy, then I don't have to take them home. Thank you.
We close with these words adapted from our hymnal by an anonymous author. May the courage of the early morning's dawning and the strength of the eternal hills, and the peace of the evening's ending, and the love of nature be in our hearts.
For those who are on Zoom, I'll start up a breakout room, and we'll leave it open for about 15 minutes.